Okay, we're back to talk about Silo Season 2, Episode 2, titled Order. This episode is written by Fred Golan, also as was Episode 1, directed by Michael Denner. And then Silo is taken from a series of short stories turned into books by Hugh Howey. In Episode 2, everyone in Silo is reacting to Juliet's decision not to clean and walk over the hill in their own very different ways. Bernard sees her enter the other silo through a video feed on her suit. And immediately it consults a book called The Order on what to do when someone does not clean. He enlists the help of, aka bribes, Judge Meadows to help support him in a message to the silo that he believes will calm the increasingly agitated citizens. Bernard claims the silo's suit technicians developed a new tape that helped keep Juliet alive for longer than usual, and that she died a hero for volunteering for this experiment and helping lead the silo into the next step of their future. In exchange for supporting and helping Bernard, Meadows tells him she wants her own good tape so that she can leave the silo. Meanwhile, the citizens of the Down Deep, mainly Juliet's colleagues and friends that are in mechanical, don't exactly buy what Bernard is selling. They want more information about what has happened to Juliet. They know that Walker and Juliet switched the tape. They believe she might be alive somewhere. Meanwhile, throughout the silo, graffiti starts popping up with the letters JL, which we have come to learn means Juliet lives. We've got talk about tape. We've got a book about a New World Order. We've got Wizard of Oz references. We've got a lot of places we can go here. Where should we start with episode 2?
Um, I guess sort of. We just start at the beginning, right? I mean, the opening scene. We'd all been wondering since the end of season one, where Bernard was going, right, and what was in that room that he rushed into, and
Hmm.
we see it. Um, and I don't know how much there is to see. I mean, you might have some notes about that. One of the big things that stood out to me, though, as you mentioned in your summary, it would seem that he is seeing what Juliet is seeing.
Yes.
That's how I read this, right? That there's
There's
like
some sort of
there's a
video feed coming back to them from the suit.
yeah, that's how I read this. And that he's surprised by seeing all of these corpses, which he don't. I mean, he very much confirms later. I think when he's talking to Meadows, and it seems that he did not know
Yeah.
about this prior to seeing this. So I thought that was interesting, and then maybe there's some other stuff here as well.
Yeah, I did. So many different little pieces of this show make me think one thing or the other because, at one point, I think I was pretty convinced heading into this episode that okay, the silos must talk, communicate, know what's happening with one another. They're in regular communication. Um, but unless that just completely broke down when there was an uprising in Silo, I think we're starting to learn that this was Silo 17 that Juliet entered. We're in Silo 18 as our primary one. That he is completely unaware, apparently, that this happened, that these bodies are all there, that is complete loss of life there. So, yeah, that did surprise me that he's unaware of that when I thought for sure, oh, these places must be sort of establish order and establish protocol and decorum. They're all communicating with one another. Now I'm just not so sure about that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, this really indicated that there isn't contact between the silos. The guy we met at the end of last week's episode seems to be in the same how to put this in the same room in the other silo, right?
Yeah.
Um, if that makes sense, right? So maybe he is the only one in there. I speculated last week that there might be other people behind
Hmm.
that door. Maybe it is just him. Regardless, there's a question of how he survives, but I
Yeah.
presume we'll get more information. We'll return to that plot line next week. Bernard has a book, as you mentioned, called The Order. It was not the Pact,
That's right.
Order. So presumably he's the only one who has access to this book.
Yeah, the pact is well known and well publicized amongst mayoral, judicial, the police, people who are quote unquote in charge. And the pact is a very familiar document or sort of Magna Carta, as it were. But this book called The Order seems to be something that is dedicated to one or a very small number of individuals and no one else knows about it. It's kind of the break glass protocols for, what to do when things go bad.
Yeah, this contains the real plan and why,
Yeah.
or how far does this go? Maybe it's not even the real plan, and there's some other level to this where,
Yeah.
but it's as close as we get to what seems to present the real plan. And one of the big things that I keep finding myself thinking about, and I want to say multiple things ultimately about this with regard to this episode, I think. Why are they doing this? Why are they lying to people? Why are they having people clean? Why does it matter if they don't clean? I mean, like all of these kind of hanging together, but the big ones, it's like, well, why aren't they just telling people the truth
Yep.
now that we know that it really is toxic outside and so on? Like, how does this all?
This has been stirring around in my brain ever since the end of season one, which is, oh my God, this huge reveal of actually it is toxic outside and there are more silos. Okay, I guess I can come to grips with that, but it's almost like this letdown of, okay, well then what's the point of trying to create this whole illusion of something that's not and just I just don't unless there's some we can get into why there might be some sort of overarching entity or organization controlling this, but why else would they be lying to all these people?
Yeah, so let's follow this path a little bit. I want to talk about the tape.
Yeah.
Tape's very central in this episode in a couple of different ways.
Yes, it
Now, of
is.
course, we know that the tape, it was important that they replace the tape. So we're also pulling back in something from season one here. Okay. So I'm wondering, does this all make sense or can we make sense of it? And I don't just mean, of course, Bernard tells this cover story that
Hmm.
IT created the new. No, no, yeah, of course, that's like kind of bullshit, right?
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
transparent. But what really happened was they replaced the tape that is usually used when people go out to clean with good tape. The tape that's usually used is shitty tape.
Yes.
Why? That's sort of my first question. Like, so they are purposefully, because someone like Bernard knows they were using bad tape
Yeah.
on purpose. Like that's
Yeah.
part of the plan. And it's
Yeah.
not because they don't have better tape, they do, and they're intentionally not using it,
Yeah.
right? So it seems like part of the plan there has to be related to um people who go out to clean dying before they can get out of that bunker, before they can make it over the hill, as I
Yeah.
generally put it.
That's yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But then it was still kind of done. But then like, okay, well, why are they using tape at all? I mean, right? You see what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
why is
Yeah.
tape a part of? They've got the suit. And they've got to use tape. That's a
Well,
weird kind of thing to be thrown in here. And
I think that until Juliet's realization of this and switching of the tape, there was not much thought put into why they needed to do it because it just meant to say, oh, we've got to do this because it seals the suit. And clearly we know that the intention is that it does not seal the suit so that two things can happen. One, that they at least stay alive long enough to make it to the screen to clean it. And two, that they don't then after that make it long enough to get over the hill to see what's happening, right? They die before they get to that crest and can see what's out there. So I don't think until Juliet came along, there was any thought as to whether the tape is important or not. It was just a part of the suit because we want to seal you up.
see, this is what's bothering me because I'm thinking about this from Bernard's perspective, but it's not
Hmm.
even from Bernard's perspective. Maybe it's from the order's perspective. Like, why is this a part of the plan of whoever the powers that be are?
Yeah.
And well, it's not Bernard because it seemed like Bernard didn't even quite know this himself. I think Bernard
Mhm.
knew that they were using low quality tape,
Yeah.
but it's not. I don't know. Maybe he does know that if they use the good tape, then they'd be able to make it over the hill. And maybe that's why he says, I should have sent Juliet to the mines when she stole that tape in the first place. I mean, I
Yeah.
guess maybe he does know, but it's still kind of weird. Why are you doing it in this way? as I've asked before, well, last week, we've only done one before this one in terms of the podcast. But why is it important that they clean? Because it seems like that's also
Yeah.
an aspect of the same kind of question.
Yeah, the cleaning almost seems to serve the authority of the silo in that it does look like in the first season a couple times that that thing really gets gunked up and covered up. And it's almost like they want them to clean it so they see the reminder of A, our world has gone to crap, and two, look at the people who have died. This was a consequence for them. You don't want a part of it. You don't want to ask to go outside. So they do need they do need that thing to be clean for a couple of different reasons. But yeah, that part almost makes more sense to me than the mechanics of why incorporate the suits to do it. Unless it's just, I mean, literally, you come into contact with that air, you're going to die immediately, and you won't be able to
Right. So
clean.
that, but then like if say Bernard or whoever happens to be in charge in whatever era of the silo we're talking about, if that person in charge knows that if you use a high enough quality tape, you'd be able to go outside for a little while and make it back in,
Mhm.
well, you could just send someone outside in a safe suit to clean the window and come back in. And when you want to execute someone, you just send them outside,
Yeah,
right? It's like, oh,
why
you're
put them in a
doubting
suit
that
at all?
outside is going to kill you? Go
Yeah,
check it out. And then it's just
yeah,
like they clearly die,
yeah.
right? So it's just like these weird complications to their plan, and realize that I don't.
You're right. They're making the suit and the cleaning mutually exclusive of one another, whereas there's no reason for it to be if they didn't want it to.
Yeah, and look, the thing part of what's bugging me right here is that I'm not sure if I am asking a question right now
Mhm.
that's an important question to be asking,
Yeah, yeah,
or if I'm asking a question that Silo ultimately is going to like wave its hands out. They're like, don't worry about that, Cameron. That's not. This is
yeah,
just how it works. Don't worry about that.
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know which way it's going to go. It seems like it could be central to unlocking the overall mystery, or it could be, well, hey, this is just how it works, except that part of the
Yeah.
structure, and that's not where the real questions lie. And I'm just
It
really not sure.
yeah, and if I had to guess, you and I have not watched ahead, I've not read the books. I think my guess is they will spend more time talking about the what and the who as opposed to the why, right? Why things are done this way. It'll be more of the uncovering the central mystery of is there some grand plan here or organization or entity or individual who's in charge of all of this as opposed to the let's explain the chapter by chapter what's in the order and why we did it that way.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder to go in a direction that maybe the show is more likely to explore and tie things together a little bit. This question of, well, is there contact between the different silos?
Yeah.
It seems possible to me that at one point there was, and
Hmm.
there is no longer. That's
Hmm.
a live possibility. Um, was the were things maybe done one way at first and then changed because of the experience they had of the likelihood of rebellion and things like that that led to this plan with the pact and
Yeah.
kind of all the weird lying and all the
Hmm.
stuff, right? Like,
Yeah.
is there a reason that led to that where maybe that wasn't how things started? Because you can imagine they have the technology in the past. Maybe they've got all these silos. Maybe we could go between them and things like this. Maybe they're in complete contact. I don't know. Maybe they realized that was a problem. I'm totally speculating, right?
Yeah.
But I have no. We just don't know, and we don't know why they have the silos
Yeah.
in the
I
first
think
place.
that
Really,
if we discover that some group or so that there is some all-powerful, omniscient group or something that created this, that designed this, that put this all into motion, and put it in a place that they sort of press go and everything just sort of started with this all of this. I can't see that they would have designed and implemented and put together all of these different plans and strategies. And part of that strategy was we have to let people go outside with a suit with defective tape. It almost seems like a haphazard thing that's been added on at some point for some reason. And yeah, we don't know if other silos have been implementing that or not. I guess maybe we'll learn that as we go along with Juliet.
right? Yeah. I mean, tying in some of the stuff about. You can't have relics, and like I feel like there are indications that the technology in the silo in the past was
Hmm.
better,
Yeah.
and that they like intentionally made it worse
Yeah.
for most people. But then in because like in Bernard's secret room, that seems like it's a bit more high tech or modern or
Yeah.
something.
Did you, it's quick and he runs by it. Did you sort of pick up on the, what looked like some sort of advanced technological servers or something that he's in a room with that looks nothing like the rest of the tech in the silo?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm not sure what we're seeing exactly,
Yeah.
but I
But it's
definitely got
something.
that
Yeah.
feeling. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, which is interesting. I had, as we're talking about this, I want to revisit something I was thinking about more in season one when I had been playing with the possibility that this was all some kind of social experiment or something, you
Yeah.
know, that
That thought's been in my mind too. Yeah.
yeah, I think some of the things you were just saying were reminding me of this hypothesis. And I kind of let that go once we found out at the end of season one that it really is toxic outside.
Hmm.
Because I'd been thinking over the course of season one, like, well, hey, maybe it's really perfectly fine outside. And
Yeah.
some group of human beings has decided to put another group of human beings in this silo and they're observing them. And, it's like a big kind of social experiment. I guess what I'm thinking now is, well, maybe I shouldn't totally rule out that kind of possibility, even still. Like maybe there is still, in some way, some possibility that it will end up being something like that. We did also see at the end of season one, there's like a city on the horizon.
Yep. Yep. I also don't
So,
rule out the possibility that this was the people living in the silo and the destruction or apocalyptic sense of what sort of world they're living in was both, I mean, it was both planned or put together by the same group, right? We're going to, our world is in need of purging or whatever, and so we're going to do it and keep enough people alive, and this is the way that we're going to make it happen. And it's less of an experiment, more of what they thought of as a necessity. Um, and this is just, what we have to go through to make things better here. I have no idea. That's just complete speculation as well.
yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
And that city is like, but it was there. It has to mean something. That has to
Yeah.
mean something,
Yeah. I
you
agree.
know. But there is a chance that it's just like an abandoned city, right? Like
Yeah.
we just don't know.
Yeah.
Um, I did want to mention the Wizard of Oz reference. Um, I don't know what to do with that, but I do think it's interesting. Um, Given the structure of things that we've seen in the silo, if you think about the Wizard of Oz, you
Hmm.
recall there's a great and all-powerful Wizard of Oz who actually is just a man behind the curtain. Um, maybe it's just kind of a wink or a thematic nod or something like that, but I don't know. I don't know if there's anything to read into this. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I guess I kind of thought the same thing that Meadows and Bernard are um, seem to be the only two people who have access to certain things or information about certain things. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think books are allowed in the general population of the silo. I don't
Mm,
recall that, but she's got obviously several books. She's got several relics. You saw her centerpiece of her table was an etch-a-sketch. I don't know if you saw that, but it's
yeah,
like
that was cool.
she's allowed things that other people aren't. Bernard has access to things other, so they are the wizards behind the curtain. They seem to be sort of bumbling through a lot of this and just sort of planning it as they go and having to consult a higher power or a higher authority when they make certain decisions. So yeah, if someone were to, aka Juliet, pull back the curtain and expose that, then what good is their authority anymore? I think it was just a wink and a nod to that. At least that's the impression I got.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just part of me is also wondering, is that is that kind of the end of the power structure?
Yeah.
It certainly does seem like, okay, Bernard is the most powerful person in the silo. All the stuff with Meadows is really interesting, and we should probably talk about that a bit more. But for one thing, we learned in this episode that at one point she was Bernard's shadow.
Yes.
and
Yes.
something happened. They had whatever kind of falling out. Um, so she knows maybe as much as Bernard knows, or maybe a little less than Bernard knows, but
Yeah.
like it would seem that she's sort of the closest to having Bernard's level of knowledge. Then we have to wonder, well, what
Yes.
happened between them, but also what led her to kind of retreat and just be a drunk for 25 years
Yeah.
that now
Uh,
she's shaken out of because of what's happened.
I think that, okay, my take on that was some point 20, 25 years ago, she was exposed to the truth or the knowledge or the information that only she and Bernard have as a shadow. She couldn't handle that, so she becomes a drunk to deal with it. Now she decided and instantaneously because she has seen someone get away that that's something it's time to push this aside. I don't want this anymore. I don't care what it takes. I want the good tape and I want to go out.
Yeah, I think that's right. Or I think I
Yeah.
was reading it in the same way, but that's still interesting to me because what 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 could she have learned
Mm.
that would have that effect? Because I mean,
Yeah.
this is one of the things going back to the beginning of what I said. Why are they lying? The difference between the truth and what they're telling people seems minimal or almost non-existent in a certain way. The truth is you can't go outside. The air will kill you.
Yeah.
That's true.
That is
So
true.
yeah, they're they clearly know something that the people at large don't. I mean, it's something about that history, or what have you. One big possibility that's been on my mind for a long time is that I forget how long they say they've been in the silo, but it's like a really long time. And they
That's
say that the rebellion happened like 140 years ago. Um, what if that's false? What if they've only been in the silo for like, this is the first generation or something, but they want to make everyone think, hey, your ancestors have been doing this for a really long time. You can do it too, buddy, or maybe
yeah.
it's something like that. And that the truth that Meadows discovers is this, that the timeline is different, and actually you're at the beginning of it
Yeah. They've
and
referenced the
something like
timeline a
that.
lot in this and I guess the episodes, particularly in the first season and when the rebellion happened. I don't think you make those references without having to go back to it and say there's something there that we're lying about as well. No one has any knowledge of it. No one has seen the relics. No one has access to the information. And so, yeah, part of me thinks the knowledge of what would lead Meadows to become a drunk is that there's some horrendous experience or event that put them there, and they don't, they were put there against their will, or they were something happened to them that they caused these people to be here. That yeah, they can't go outside, but it's the result of something that happened that forced them to do that, as opposed to natural events or something occurred that was outside our control. It wasn't just that Skynet, got smart and took over. It was we made something happen. What would lead someone to become a drunk like that? Maybe something along those lines.
Where Earth has been invaded by aliens who poisoned the atmosphere on
Yeah.
purpose. you know I mean, all sorts of things are possible. Or maybe she learned that people are never ever ever going to be able to leave the silo
Yeah, that's true.
ever.
That's true.
It feels like there has to be some hidden truth that,
Yeah.
I presume we'll find out. And it's really, I love the fact that we're getting the indication that Meadows knows things that Bernard knows, and that gives an entry point into answering some of these questions. Whereas I guess I thought maybe it would be by Sims becoming Bernard's shadow.
Hmm.
I guess that might still happen, but it kind of seems like it won't.
Yeah, it does not at all to me, at least based on the conversations we got in this episode.
Bernard doesn't trust him enough,
No, it does not.
which maybe is fair because it kind of feels like Sims has some kind of secret plan
Mhm.
thing in those scenes with his
Yeah.
wife.
Yes.
I don't know what it is, but
Yeah.
um, one other thing about the tape. Let's go in this direction of the boiling possibility of rebellion.
Yeah.
I don't know if this makes sense either. I mean, okay, so you have the feeling if you're Shirley, right? That's the right character here, right?
Yep.
That Bernard's lying, right?
Hmm.
But then we know, and the people in Mechanical know, I'm actually not positive if Walker's told Shirley at this point, if Shirley knows for sure. They switch the tape.
Yeah.
Regardless, so um how to put this? Um wouldn't wouldn't the stuff about the tape actually, if you think it through, confirm the idea that it actually is toxic outside,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Like that
I don't
we
think that's a
know
question. That's a question for them now that it's toxic outside. Yeah.
it
At
doesn't
least for
feel
that
like
group of
they're
people. But that group
yeah.
of people also understands that it's not just this dangerous experimental thing that, oh, maybe we'll survive if we go outside. Actually, no, we can't because Juliet died, even though she made it farther than anyone else. They have a sense of, we know what the issue was. We know why you couldn't go outside. We have made it such that you can. And so we want to go find out and explore what Juliet has been able to. I think everybody else at Silos, at least initially, buying into the idea of,
Hmm.
well, we tried. It's better than it was before. We're taking the right steps, but still, she died. She died a hero because, she was the next step in the evolution of helping us get out of here. The people in Mechanical don't believe that at all. They believe they can, at least the people in this little band of, revelers here, that they can get out.
Right, but so then their rebellion would not be like the one that we saw at the beginning of episode one, where it wouldn't be them naively marching out with,
Yeah,
bare skin, but
right.
that they'll have figured out that it was a matter of Juliet having good tape and hey, we can go out and, see if she's still alive, see what she saw, see what it's like out there.
Yeah. Their
And then,
rebellion
oh,
almost has to happen in the shadows and has to happen. There's, I assume, not an unlimited amount of this heat tape that's so good. So, they have to use that sparingly unless they can create more. I have no idea.
that's fair. How do they make the tape?
Yeah.
Is there a tape maker?
Yeah.
I don't know why the tape just feels like a weird. It's so weirdly low tech and high tech at the same time. If you think about
Right,
tape,
right.
I mean, it's like the kind of uh I don't know what term to use, but the certain tendency to be like, well, I'll just fix it with duct tape. It's
Yeah.
like, Dad, you should really use a screw. I've got duct tape. But at the same time, if you think about making tape,
Yeah.
that is,
Yeah.
so yeah, do they make tape somewhere? We know that they make other things. Um, Before I go there, let me say one thing I was just thinking of, if I can pull it back to the top of my mind. Yeah, that okay. So if this does boil up into a rebellion in Silo Prime or number 18, if it's number 18, that then our friends in Mechanical know it's a question about having good enough tape, can make the inference that it is actually toxic outside, but are potentially also still mad about the way in which judicial and IT and all of them have been lying to people and controlling things and not telling them the truth.
Yeah.
So the point of the rebellion potentially would be to change the power structure or find out what the
Yeah.
actual truth of things is, but not to march out of the silo and all die,
Right. It would have to be to take over and democratize the silo in some way, as opposed to let one person or one group control it. Yeah.
which is interesting. Which is interesting. Yeah. Yet we have Knox. He goes to I don't know, blacksmith or something. I don't
Yeah.
know
Sort of like
whatever that
some
guy's.
some kind of creator maker, their version of a makerspace. Yeah.
And so he says he has two asks. The first is to not make people weapons that people come
Hmm.
around, and we don't get the second one, I believe.
Yeah. I was very curious about that. I mean, I think this is the first we've seen of this blacksmith or this engineer or this designer, whatever it is that he does. Clearly
I
he
think
has
so. Yeah, I didn't recognize it.
yeah, he has the ability to make things of a lot of different shapes, forms, and fashions, and some of the things could be weapons. Makes sense that they don't want to, start a rebellion unnecessarily with these weapons. But yeah, just I can't even speculate what the other one would be, unless it's he's secretly putting into motion, which I don't even, this guy couldn't do that. I was thinking about the conversation they had about we can shut down the silo one time.
Hmm.
We can shut it down and, then they'll throw us all in jail or kill us or whatever. But that doesn't seem like to be this guy's job. So I'm not sure what he's asking him there.
Me neither. It's one of those things where like it just kind of cuts and goes to another scene, right?
Yeah.
Um, so that's a lingering question. Then we get the graffiti. People are putting JL on banisters and not banisters,
Yeah.
columns, whatever. I guess it stands for Juliet Lives. I don't know that they tell us that in the show, but I guess that's
Yeah,
the
one
inference.
one person in the show speculates at that. And I think the thing I found interesting about the graffiti was I guess it makes sense if, mechanical, those folks started doing it in the down deep. But the first time we see it is up top where Bernard is, where Sims is, where Meadows is. And so who at that level is presumably doing that and starting it? That seems to be the first place where we witness it. So is there some group of people um, that's trying to start some kind of uprising at that level? That's sort of the upper crust, as it were, up there. And so who is doing it up there? I don't think that we know yet.
Right. Or is it just random people? Is it just an indication that,
Yeah.
well, hey, everyone was gathered, everyone saw her go over the hill without dying. And so now, of course, there
Yeah.
are people who are saying, she's alive.
Yeah.
And, so I don't know. Maybe it doesn't matter exactly who. We'll see. I mean, I'm suggesting maybe there's no real organization behind it.
Yeah. There may
It's
not be.
just kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
a thing that's happening. Um, so really curious to see where this goes. Um, my expectation is episode 3 is going to take us back to the other silo where Juliet is, and might spend the whole hour there.
Yeah.
And we'll have to see how the structure
Episode,
shapes up in this season.
yeah, the title of episode 3 has been released. It is called Solo. And so I can only imagine that we are back with Juliet for that episode for a title like that.
Yeah, and I think I think that's Steve Zahn's character's name.
Hmm.
I think I've
It
encountered
is.
that. Like I don't think that's a spoiler. I think they call him Solo, not
Yeah.
Han.
That's everywhere. So, yeah. Yeah.
No relation.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I bet you're
so
right. I bet you're right.
so yeah. But I mean that's cool. We have to wait week to week. I don't mind the structure of going back and forth. I would expect usually when you get that kind of structure by the end of the season, the two come together. But
Yeah. It would have to.
given the structure of season 1, that might be in the very last episode of season 2.
Yeah.
We'll see. Regardless, I've been enjoying it. You wanted to say something about Billings and Lucas Kyle.
Well, just in hope that, and it may not be till episode 4 now, we got Sheriff Billings taking a statement. That was all we got of him in this episode. We saw none of Lucas Kyle as he been sent to the mines for 10 years, like Bernard threatened. Just love to see more of them and know what's going on here, and are they involved at all in either side, whether the support or in rebellion of what Bernard is doing, and just interested in hope we see more of them.
And I don't think we've seen the mines.
No, we have
We've been
not.
told there are mines,
Yep.
and being sent there is like bad punishment.
Yep.
So I do hope Lucas would be our entry point into the mines. So I do hope for that.
Exactly. Exactly.
Billings is a really interesting character. He seems maybe more torn than anyone else who remains
Hmm.
in our original silo. He
Yeah.
did find that Georgia tour book or whatever last
Yes.
season,
Yes.
which makes me think that that city is Atlanta. I have no idea if you could like. Has anyone done that? Has anyone like closely examined that skyline and tried to match it up?
Oh, good question. I've not seen anything like that, but that would be an interesting analysis.
I don't know how much it matters, but yeah, I'd be all for it if someone did that. Clearly, I have not put the time and effort myself to try to figure out what city that is. I just jumped to Georgia, probably Atlanta. Fine, let's move forward. But yeah, so I think that about covers it. Anything else you want to hit on before we wrap up here today?
I'm good. Nope, we'll presumably go to Juliet next time, and yeah, we'll keep flipping back and forth at least for a little while.
All right. So thanks as always for listening to the podcast. If you enjoyed it, please do leave a good rating, review, all that kind of good stuff. If you're listening to this part on the YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, press the thumbs up. Look for TV Obsessive on social media. Check out tvobsessive.com. Ryan is writing recaps of each episode of Silo this season. In addition to our podcast work here, I wrote on each episode of season one if you want to revisit any of those. And of course, there's all kinds of other stuff on tvobsessive.com that I hope you might check out. And we'll be back next week for Silo season 2, episode 3.
All right. See you for Black Friday.
All right.